She had already lost her baby. Then she lost her husband. And now? She was being forced to watch as her husband's pregnant mistress mocked her miscarriage right to her face. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers, the mistress whispered with a smile. But sometimes karma has a way of revealing the truth. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. 6 months earlier, Rachel Bennett stood at her kitchen window, staring at the rain sliding down the glass. The house felt emptier than ever before. Her hand unconsciously drifted to her stomach flat now, but it had once carried all her hopes and dreams. The miscarriage had happened 3 weeks ago. The doctors called it stress-induced, a clinical term that failed to capture how her world had collapsed around her. The nursery down the hall remained half-painted, a sunny yellow that now seemed to mock her grief. She heard the front door open and close. Andrew was home early usual these days. Since she'd found the texts on his phone, since she'd confronted him about the affair, he'd been working late, avoiding her, avoiding the shattered remains of their 5-year marriage. "Rachel?" Andrew's voice echoed through the hallway. "We need to talk." She didn't turn from the window. "About what? The divorce papers? I told you I need time." Andrew stepped into the kitchen, setting his briefcase down on the counter. Rachel finally turned to look at him, his disheveled appearance, the dark circles under his eyes, the way he couldn't quite meet her gaze. "It's Vanessa," he said. The name sent a wave of nausea through Rachel's body. Vanessa, the 28-year-old from his office, the woman he'd been sleeping with for months while Rachel had been trying to conceive their child. "What about her?" Rachel's voice was hollow, emotionless. "She's pregnant." Andrew finally looked up, his expression a mixture of guilt and something else, something that made Rachel's blood run cold. "It's mine." The world seemed to tilt around her. Rachel gripped the counter, knuckles white. "How convenient," she whispered. "I lose our baby, and suddenly your girlfriend is pregnant." "Rachel, I know this is." "Don't." Her voice cut like a knife. "Don't you dare tell me what this is. You have no idea what this is for me." Andrew ran a hand through his hair. "I made a mistake with Vanessa. I know that. But now there's a child involved and I have responsibilities." Rachel laughed a harsh, broken sound. "Responsibilities? What about your responsibilities to me? To our marriage? To the baby we lost because I was stressed about your affair?" "I'm sorry," he said, the words falling flat in the space between them. "But I need to do the right thing." "The right thing would have been not cheating on your wife," Rachel said, turning back to the window. "Get out. I need to be alone." After Andrew left, Rachel sank to the kitchen floor, silent tears streaming down her face. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Her baby, their baby, was gone, while Vanessa carried a new life inside her. A life created from betrayal. She didn't know then how much crueler things would become. The first time Rachel met Vanessa face to face was at a cafe near Andrew's office. Andrew had insisted they all talk like adults, he'd said. Rachel had agreed only because their financial situation was complicated. The house was in both their names. Their accounts were joint. She needed time to figure out her next steps. Vanessa was exactly as Rachel had imagined her, young, beautiful, with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Her sleek black hair was pulled into a perfect ponytail, her makeup flawless. But it was her eyes that caught Rachel's attention, cold, calculating, watching Rachel's every reaction. "I'm so glad we could do this," Vanessa said, stirring her decaf latte. Her free hand rested casually on her still flat stomach. "It's important that we all get along, for the baby's sake." Rachel nodded stiffly, clutching her own coffee cup like a lifeline. "Of course, the baby." The words burned her throat like acid. Andrew shifted uncomfortably between them. "Rachel and I are still sorting out the divorce details," he explained to Vanessa. "It's complicated because of the house and finances." "Oh, I understand," Vanessa smiled, her eyes never leaving Rachel's face. "These things take time. We're in no rush, are we, Andy?" Andy. Rachel had never called him that. He'd always said he hated that nickname. "The important thing is that we're all civil," Andrew continued, clearly relieved that no one was making a scene. "This situation is difficult for everyone, some more than others," Vanessa murmured, taking a sip of her latte. Rachel caught the meaning behind the words, but before she could respond, Vanessa leaned forward. "I heard about what happened," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. "Your loss. That must have been difficult." Rachel froze. Andrew had told her about the miscarriage. Of course he had. "It was," Rachel managed to say, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Well," Vanessa's eyes flicked down to her own stomach, "I guess some women are just meant to be mothers, and some aren't." Andrew choked on his coffee. "Vanessa, that's just an observation," Vanessa finished, her smile never wavering. "I'm naturally maternal, I suppose. My doctor says I have the perfect body for childbearing." Rachel set her cup down with a sharp click. "I should go." "So soon?" Vanessa's eyebrows rose in mock concern. We've hardly had a chance to get to know each other. I think I know everything I need to know, Rachel replied, gathering her purse. That night, alone in her bedroom, the bedroom she used to share with Andrew, Rachel sobbed into her pillow. The cruelty of Vanessa's words echoed in her mind. Some women are just meant to be mothers, and some aren't. Was that true? Had the universe decided she wasn't worthy of motherhood? The thought was like a knife twisting in her heart. Rachel had always wanted children. She and Andrew had started trying soon after their 3rd anniversary. Month after month of disappointment had followed, until finally test had shown positive. She'd never seen Andrew so happy. They'd started planning immediately. The nursery, the names, the future. And then she'd found the texts. Her husband and Vanessa planning meetups, exchanging intimate messages. When she'd confronted Andrew, he'd denied it at first, then admitted to a mistake. He'd promised it was over, that he loved Rachel, that they could work through it for the baby's sake. A week later, Rachel started bleeding. The doctor said stress could have contributed to the miscarriage, the body's response to extreme emotional distress. As if her body had decided it couldn't nurture new life while her heart was breaking. And now Vanessa was pregnant with Andrew's child. The universe's cruelest joke. Rachel wiped her tears and sat up in bed. She couldn't keep living like this, drowning in grief while Vanessa flaunted her pregnancy. She needed to leave, to start over somewhere else. But how? Their money was tied up in the house. Her jewelry design business was just starting to take off. Locally moving would mean starting from scratch. And despite everything, Andrew was dragging his feet on the divorce settlement. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Andrew, Vanessa's lease is up next month. Her place has black mold. Doctor says it's not safe for the baby. She needs somewhere to stay until we find a new place, just for a few weeks. Rachel stared at the message in disbelief. Was he actually suggesting? A second message appeared. I know it's a lot to ask, but we have the guest room. I'd pay extra toward the mortgage. Please, Rachel, for the baby's sake. The baby that wasn't hers. The baby that exists because her husband had betrayed her. Rachel threw the phone across the room. A week later, Vanessa moved into Rachel's guest bedroom. The financial reality had forced Rachel's hand. Andrew had offered to cover the entire mortgage for the duration of Vanessa's stay. Money Rachel desperately needed, while she built up her savings to move out. It's just temporary, Andrew assured her as he carried Vanessa's designer suitcases up the stairs. A month, maybe 2. Rachel stood in the kitchen, arms crossed tightly across her chest. And where will you be staying? Andrew paused on the stairs. I've got an Airbnb nearby. I thought it would be easier, for everyone. Easier for him, Rachel thought bitterly. He didn't want to choose between the wife he'd betrayed and the mistress carrying his child. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, one hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. Your home is lovely, Rachel. So quaint. I can see why Andy was ready for an upgrade. Rachel's nails dug into her palms. The guest room is at the end of the hall. The bathroom is shared. Shared? Vanessa's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Oh, that won't work with my morning sickness. I need exclusive access. Then find somewhere else to live, Rachel snapped. Rachel, Andrew's tone was warning as he came back downstairs. Remember our agreement, their agreement, as if she had any real choice in the matter. Fine, Rachel said through gritted teeth. Use my ensuite bathroom. I'll use the guest one. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. Perfect. Pregnancy makes you so sensitive to smells, you know. My sense of smell is incredibly heightened now. The doctor says it's because my body is so in tune with the baby. And so began the most excruciating period of Rachel's life. Each day brought new torments as Vanessa made herself increasingly at home. She rearranged the kitchen cabinets to accommodate her pregnancy-friendly foods. She left her prenatal vitamins prominently displayed on the counter. She played lullabies throughout the house, claiming it was good for the baby's development. But worst of all were the subtle digs about Rachel's miscarriage. Never when Andrew was around, of course, only when they were alone. I was reading about miscarriages, Vanessa said one morning as Rachel made coffee. They're usually nature's way of eliminating unhealthy pregnancies. The body knows when something isn't right. Rachel's hand trembled as she poured the coffee. My doctor said it was stress-induced. Vanessa tilted her head, feigning thoughtfulness. Or maybe your body just knew you weren't ready to be a mother. Not everyone has that maternal instinct, you know. Each comment was like a knife to Rachel's heart, but she forced herself to stay calm. She wouldn't give Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing her break. Instead, Rachel began to observe. At first, it was just a way to distract herself from the pain, noting Vanessa's habits, her routines, the small inconsistencies in her behavior. But gradually, Rachel noticed patterns that didn't make sense. For someone supposedly in love with Andrew, Vanessa rarely seemed interested in his company. When he visited the house, She was affectionate in front of Rachel, but the moment Rachel was out of sight, watching through a cracked door or from around a corner, Vanessa's demeanor changed. She became distant, almost irritated by Andrew's presence. And then there were the phone calls. Late at night, when she thought Rachel was asleep, Vanessa would slip into the guest bedroom and speak in hushed tones. Once Rachel pressed her ear to the door and heard snippets. I know. Just a little longer. He's completely clueless. Once we're married, it won't matter. Who was she talking to? And what wouldn't matter once they were married? Most puzzling were Vanessa's doctor appointments. She had them frequently, more frequently than seemed normal for a healthy pregnancy, and she always insisted on going alone. It's a special prenatal clinic, she explained when Andrew offered to accompany her. They have a strict one-person policy due to some protocols. Andrew accepted this without question, but Rachel's suspicions grew, especially when she noticed Vanessa leaving the house for these appointments looking far more dressed up than necessary, perfect makeup, high heels, despite complaining about pregnancy-related back pain, expensive jewelry. One evening, when Vanessa was supposedly at a late evening prenatal yoga class, Rachel slipped into her room. She told herself she was just retrieving a shirt that Vanessa had borrowed without asking, but the truth was more complicated. Something wasn't adding up, and Rachel needed answers. The room was meticulously organized, almost too perfect, as if staged for a visitor. On the nightstand sat a framed ultrasound photo, prominently displayed. Rachel picked it up, studying the fuzzy black and white image. Something about it seemed off, but she couldn't quite place what. A notification sound drew her attention to Vanessa's iPad, charging on the bed. Rachel hesitated, then picked it up. The screen lit up with a text message preview. Missing you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Our secret place. Dual time. The message wasn't from Andrew. Rachel's heart raced as she swiped to unlock the iPad and found it wasn't password protected. Either Vanessa was incredibly careless or supremely confident that no one would invade her privacy. Rachel opened the Messages app, but the conversation she'd glimpsed wasn't there. Deleted, perhaps? She checked the photos, finding hundreds of selfies and outfit pictures, but nothing incriminating. The calendar app showed the doctor's appointments, yoga classes, and baby shopping trips that Vanessa had mentioned to Andrew. But then Rachel noticed a second calendar app, tucked away in a folder labeled Utilities. She tapped it open. There, color-coded in red, were appointments with a name that made Rachel's blood run cold. Dr. Michaels. Rachel knew that name. Dr. Michaels wasn't an obstetrician. He was a fertility specialist, the same one she and Andrew had consulted when they were trying to conceive. Why would a pregnant woman be seeing a fertility specialist? The sound of the front door opening jolted Rachel back to reality. She quickly replaced the iPad, straightened the bedspread, and slipped out of the room just as Vanessa's voice called out from downstairs. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more troubling than the last. Was Vanessa faking her pregnancy? No. Her growing belly seemed genuine. Was there something wrong with the baby? That might explain the frequent appointments. Or was there something else going on? Something that explained the secret phone calls, the mystery texter, and the visits to a fertility specialist. Rachel needed more information, and she knew exactly how to get it. The next morning, she made a call to an old college friend who had become a private investigator. It was time to uncover the truth about Vanessa. The baby she claimed was Andrew's. So let me get this straight, Mike Reynolds said, leaning back in his chair at the small cafe where Rachel had arranged to meet him. Your husband's pregnant mistress is living in your house and you think she's hiding something about the baby? Rachel nodded, stirring her untouched coffee. I know how it sounds, but something's not right, Mike. The secret phone calls, the appointments with a fertility specialist, the way she acts when Andrew isn't around. Mike studied her face. They'd known each other since freshman year of college, before he became a private investigator specializing in infidelity cases. You're sure this isn't just, looking for a way to discredit her? I'd understand if it was. I'm not making this up, Rachel insisted. And I'm not crazy. Will you help me or not? Mike sighed. For you, yes, but standard rates apply. This kind of surveillance isn't cheap, especially if you want it done right. Rachel pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. That's my jewelry business's quarterly profit. It's all I can spare right now. Mike peeked inside the envelope, then tucked it into his jacket. This will cover a week of basic surveillance. I'll follow her, document her movements, see if I can figure out who she's meeting and why. If we need more after that, we'll talk. Thank you, Rachel breathed. I just need to know the truth. The truth isn't always what we want to hear, Mike warned her. Are you prepared for that? Rachel thought about Vanessa's smug smile, her cutting remarks about motherhood, the way she had systematically taken over Rachel's life. Whatever the truth is, it can't be worse than not knowing. The next 5 days were excruciating. Rachel maintained her composure around Vanessa, pretending nothing had changed. She endured the snide comments, the territorial behavior, the constant reminders of the growing life inside her rival's body. All the while, she knew Mike was watching, following, documenting. On Wednesday, Vanessa announced she had a doctor's appointment. "Is Andrew meeting you there?" Rachel asked casually, not looking up from her laptop where she was working on designs for her jewelry line. "No, he's busy with that conference call," Vanessa replied, applying a final coat of mascara, her fourth makeup product of the morning. "Besides, today is just routine monitoring. Nothing exciting." Rachel nodded, sending a quick text to Mike under the table. "Doctor's appointment today, 2 p.m. She's leaving now." As soon as Vanessa left, Rachel paced the house anxiously. What would Mike find? Would this be the break they needed? Or was she grasping at straws, desperate to find fault in the woman who had stolen her husband and now flaunted her fertility? Hours later, her phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Call me, now." Rachel's hands trembled as she dialed his number. "What did you find?" "She never went to any doctor," Mike said without preamble. "She drove to the Westbrook Hotel and met a man in the lobby. They went up to a room together and stayed for almost 2 hours. Rachel sank onto the couch, her legs suddenly weak. A man? Not Andrew? Definitely not Andrew. This guy is tall, dark hair, athletic build, drives a red Maserati. They seemed very familiar with each other. "An affair," Rachel whispered. "She's having an affair." "It gets better," Mike continued. "After the hotel, she went shopping, bought baby things, but also lingerie, expensive stuff. Then she made a stop at a clinic, but she was only inside for maybe 15 minutes, not long enough for any real appointment." "What clinic?" "Women's Health Associates. I checked. They do handle pregnancies, but also a lot of other women's health issues." Rachel's mind raced. So she's pregnant, having an affair, and lying about her doctor's appointments. But why? If the baby is Andrew's, why risk everything with another man? "Maybe the baby isn't Andrew's," Mike suggested quietly. The possibility hit Rachel like a physical blow. If the baby wasn't Andrew's, if Vanessa had been lying this entire time, it would change everything. "I need proof," Rachel said firmly. "Absolute, undeniable proof." "I'm working on it," Mike assured her. "Give me a few more days. And Rachel, be careful. Don't let her know you suspect anything." The next day, Rachel found herself studying Vanessa more carefully than ever. Had she missed signs of deception? The way Vanessa clutched her phone possessively, the vague answers about her prenatal care, the reluctance to discuss specifics about the baby's development with Andrew. That evening, Andrew came over for dinner, a painfully awkward affair that Vanessa had insisted on, claiming they needed to maintain family relationships for the baby's sake. Rachel watched as Vanessa put on a performance, touching her belly, discussing baby names with Andrew, playing the role of devoted mother-to-be. "I was thinking Alexander if it's a boy," Vanessa said, reaching for Andrew's hand across the table. "After your father." Andrew smiled, clearly touched. "He would have loved that." Rachel looked down at her plate, fighting the surge of anger that rose in her throat. Andrew's father had been like a second father to her. They had discussed naming their baby after him if they had a boy. Now Vanessa was co-opting even that. "And what if it's a girl?" Rachel asked, forcing her voice to remain steady. Vanessa's eyes flicked to her, cold despite her smile. "Oh, I know it's a boy." Mother's intuition. After dinner, when Andrew stepped outside to take a work call, Vanessa cornered Rachel in the kitchen. "I see the way you look at me," she hissed, her friendly facade dropping instantly. "Like you're studying me, looking for flaws. It's pathetic." Rachel calmly loaded dishes into the dishwasher. "I don't know what you're talking about. You can't stand that I'm having Andrew's baby when you couldn't even carry yours to term," Vanessa continued, her voice a venomous whisper. "But here's the reality, Rachel. I won. Andrew chose me. This baby chose me. And you're just the sad ex-wife who couldn't give him what he wanted." Rachel turned to face her, fighting to maintain her composure. "Is that what you think this is? A competition? One that I've clearly won?" Vanessa smiled, patting her belly. "The sooner you accept that and move on, the better for everyone, especially you. It's just sad watching you cling to the remains of your marriage." The front door opened as Andrew returned, and Vanessa's expression instantly transformed back into one of serene maternal glow. "Everything okay in here?" Andrew asked, looking between them. "Perfect," Vanessa beamed. "Rachel and I were just discussing nursery colors." That night, after Andrew and Vanessa had left, Rachel sat alone in her living room, a glass of wine in hand. Her phone buzzed with a new text from Mike. "Got something. Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. The coffee shop was crowded, providing the perfect cover for their meeting. Mike slid into the seat across from Rachel, setting a manila envelope on the table between them. "Tell me," Rachel said, foregoing any greeting. Mike pushed the envelope toward her. It's all in there. Photos, times, dates. But the short version? Vanessa has been seeing this other man for at least 6 months long before she got pregnant. His name is James Cortez. He's a real estate developer, divorced, no kids. From what I can tell, they have a pretty serious relationship. Rachel opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were dozens of photos. Vanessa and a handsome dark-haired man entering hotels, dining at restaurants, shopping together. In several, they were kissing or holding hands. 6 months? Rachel's voice was barely audible. But she's only been with Andrew for 4 months. Mike finished for her, at least officially. And she's what, 4 months pregnant? Rachel nodded slowly. That's what she claims. Well, here's where it gets interesting. Mike leaned forward, lowering his voice. Yesterday, I managed to follow them into that clinic, Women's Health Associates. I posed as a pharmaceutical rep, got chatting with a nurse, mentioned I'd seen my cousin Vanessa coming in. The nurse was very discreet, but she did confirm that Vanessa is their patient. For prenatal care? For fertility treatments, Mike said quietly. She's been a patient there for nearly a year, undergoing IVF. Rachel stared at him, trying to process this information. IVF? But why would she need? I don't have all the details, Mike admitted. But from what I could gather, she and this James guy have been trying to have a baby together through IVF. Successfully, it seems. So the baby isn't Andrew's, Rachel whispered. It never was. It gets worse. Mike pulled out another photo, a close-up shot of Vanessa and James in what looked like a doctor's office, staring at an ultrasound screen. This was taken 2 days ago. They went to a different clinic together, a high-end private practice. She's definitely pregnant, and she's definitely sharing that experience with James, not Andrew. Rachel felt dizzy. But why? Why lie to Andrew? Why pretend it's his baby? Mike shrugged. That part I haven't figured out yet. Maybe James doesn't want to publicly acknowledge the baby. Maybe she's playing them both? Or maybe what? Maybe Andrew has something Vanessa wants, Mike suggested. Money? Status? Security? From what I can tell, James is wealthy but secretive about their relationship. Maybe she's hedging her bets. Rachel sat back, her mind reeling with the implications. Andrew wasn't the father of Vanessa's baby. The woman who had destroyed her marriage, mocked her miscarriage, and invaded her home had been lying to everyone all along. I need more, Rachel said finally. This is damning, but Andrew might not believe it. He's completely under her spell. What specifically are you looking for? Rachel thought for a moment. Proof that she's been undergoing IVF with James. Medical records. Something Andrew can't dispute. Mike frowned. Medical records are protected by privacy laws. I can't just. There must be a way, Rachel insisted. What about the fertility clinic? Dr. Michaels. I saw appointments with him on her calendar. I'll see what I can do, Mike said reluctantly. But Rachel, what are you planning to do with all this information? Rachel stared at the photos spread before her, images of Vanessa's double life, her calculated deception, her cruel manipulation. I'm going to make sure she never hurts anyone else the way she hurt me, Rachel said quietly. I'm going to expose her for exactly what she is. For the next week, Rachel lived in a state of suspended animation. She went through the motions of daily life, working on her jewelry designs, maintaining civil interactions with Vanessa, responding to Andrew's occasional texts about practical matters. All the while, she was gathering information, building her case, waiting for the perfect moment. Mike came through with additional evidence cords, showing that Vanessa had been a patient at the fertility clinic for over a year. Text messages he'd managed to recover, showing her coordination of doctor's appointments with James, even a recording of Vanessa on the phone discussing her backup plan if James wouldn't commit after the baby was born. The picture it painted was clear. Vanessa had been trying to have a baby with James through IVF. When she finally got pregnant, she had seduced Andrew as insurancy, a backup plan in case James wouldn't commit to being a father. She had deliberately caused the end of Rachel's marriage as part of her calculated scheme. But the final piece of evidence came unexpectedly, from Vanessa herself. It was late evening. Rachel was in her home office working when she heard Vanessa's angry voice from the guest room. Curious, Rachel moved closer to the wall they shared. I don't care what you want, James, Vanessa was saying, her voice raised. This was always the plan. I get pregnant. We have options. Andrew is stable. He has good insurance. And he's completely besotted with me. A pause as the person on the other, and presumably James, responded. Of course the baby is yours, Vanessa continued, her tone softening slightly. You know that. The IVF worked, but I need security. And Andrew provides that. Once the baby is born, we can do a paternity test if you insist. But by then it will be too late for Andrew to back out. He'll be on the birth certificate. Rachel's heart pounded as she pressed record on her phone, capturing Vanessa's side of the conversation. "No, he doesn't suspect anything," Vanessa laughed. "Men see what they want to see. He thinks the baby is his miracle." Meanwhile, his pathetic ex-wife is still hanging around, probably still hoping he'll come back to her. Rachel's hand tightened around her phone. "The baby shower is next week," Vanessa continued. "Andrew's organizing it. All his family will be there. The perfect opportunity to cement my place in his life. By the time the baby comes, I'll be so entrenched that even if he did find out, he wouldn't be able to just walk away." Another pause. "Look, I need to go. Andrew's coming over later. Just remember our agreement. I handle things my way until the baby is born. Then we can figure out the next steps. I love you too." Rachel stood frozen against the wall, the recording still running on her phone. She had everything she needed now. Vanessa had admitted it all: the IVF, James being the father, her manipulation of Andrew, the baby shower. That would be her moment, the perfect stage for Vanessa's public unmasking. As Rachel moved away from the wall, a plan began to form in her mind. A plan that would not only expose Vanessa's lies, but would do so in the most poetic way possible at the very event Vanessa had designed to cement her place in Andrew's life. The cafe was bustling with late-morning customers when Rachel arrived. She spotted Vanessa immediately, holding court at a corner table, her growing baby bump accentuated by a form-fitting maternity dress. The sight of her sitting there, sipping a decaf latte and checking her phone, filled Rachel with a strange calm. The woman who had destroyed her marriage and mocked her deepest pain had no idea what was coming. "Rachel," Vanessa's voice dripped with false warmth as Rachel approached the table. "Thank you for meeting me. Please, sit." Rachel slid into the chair across from her, setting her purse on the table. "You said it was important." "It is," Vanessa smiled, sliding an elegant envelope across the table. "I wanted to give you this in person." Rachel stared at the envelope without touching it. "What is it?" "An invitation." Vanessa sat back, one hand resting on her belly in that possessive way Rachel had come to hate. "To my baby shower next weekend. Andrew and I would be on to attend." Rachel looked up sharply, searching Vanessa's face for signs of the cruelty that must be behind this gesture. "You're inviting me to your baby shower?" Vanessa's smile widened. "Of course. We're practically family, aren't we? Besides, I think it's important that we show everyone we can be civil. For the baby's sake." For the baby's sake. The phrase that had become a weapon in Vanessa's arsenal, wielded whenever she wanted to manipulate a situation. "Besides," Vanessa continued, leaning forward slightly, "it might be your only chance to experience a real baby shower, given your situation." And there it was, the cruelty Rachel had expected thinly veiled behind a smile. Vanessa was inviting her to celebrate the baby that had destroyed her marriage, to sit among guests who would pity the barren ex-wife while celebrating the fertile young mistress. It was a trap designed to humiliate her, a public demonstration of Vanessa's victory. "I don't think that would be appropriate," Rachel said carefully. "Oh, but Andrew insists," Vanessa replied, pushing the invitation closer. "He's very concerned about maintaining friendly relations. For the divorce settlement, you understand. It would look so much better if we could all be adults about this." Rachel understood the implicit threat. Andrew was still dragging his feet on finalizing their divorce, still controlling their joint finances. If she refused this olive branch, he might make the process even more difficult. "Fine," Rachel said, finally picking up the envelope. "There." Vanessa's smile turned triumphant. "Wonderful. It's at the Westbrook Hotel ballroom. Andrew's mother insisted on hosting it there. Very elegant. Wear something appropriate." Rachel nodded stiffly, rising from her chair. As she turned to leave, Vanessa called after her. "Oh, and Rachel, no need to bring a gift. Your presence will be gift enough." Later that day, Rachel met with Mike at his office, the baby shower invitation burning a hole in her purse. She explained Vanessa's invitation and the humiliation that clearly lay behind it. "It's the perfect opportunity," Rachel concluded. "She'll have everyone there: Andrew, his family, her friends, everyone she's been lying to, all in one room." Mike looked concerned. "Rachel, are you sure about this? Public confrontations can get messy. There's no controlling how people will react." "I've never been more sure of anything," Rachel replied firmly. "She spent months torturing me, flaunting her pregnancy, mocking my miscarriage. She destroyed my marriage with calculated precision, all for her backup plan. She deserves to be exposed." "And Andrew? What about him?" Rachel's expression hardened. "He made his choice. He chose to believe her, to leave me when I was at my lowest. He deserves to know he's been manipulated, but I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing it for me." Mike nodded slowly. "All right, what's your plan?" Rachel pulled out a notebook where she'd been jotting ideas. "I want it to be public, but not chaotic. Controlled. Devastating. irrefutable, something that gives her no wiggle room to deny the truth. "You have all the evidence," Mike pointed out. "The photos, the recordings, the clinic records." "Yes, but just showing evidence feels cold, clinical. I want something more poetic." Rachel tapped her pen against the notebook, something that turns her moment of triumph into her moment of exposure. Mike thought for a moment. "The baby shower will have games, right? Gifts? A cake?" Rachel nodded. "Standard baby shower stuff, I imagine." What if the revelation came from something at the shower itself, something she couldn't avoid or dismiss? A slow smile spread across Rachel's face. "The cake. Everyone gathers around for the cake cutting. It's usually a big moment at these things. You could have something hidden inside," Mike suggested. "Or maybe written on it?" Rachel shook her head. "No, that's too easy to miss or cover up." But inside, her eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. That's it, the perfect way to reveal her lies. For the next hour, they refined the plan, covering every contingency. It needed to be foolproof, impossible for Vanessa to wriggle out of. By the time Rachel left Mike's office, she had a clear vision of exactly how Vanessa's house of cards would come tumbling down. The week leading up to the baby shower was surreal. Rachel moved through her days with a strange sense of calm, knowing that the end was in sight. She was polite to Vanessa, even helpful, offering to run errands for the shower preparations. If Vanessa was suspicious of this change in attitude, she didn't show it. 3 days before the shower, Andrew stopped by the house to pick up some clothes he'd left behind. He found Rachel in the kitchen, working on a new jewelry design. "You're really coming to the shower?" he asked, his tone a mixture of surprise and relief. Rachel looked up from her work. "Vanessa invited me. It seemed important to her." Andrew nodded, seemingly relieved. "I appreciate it, Rachel. I know this isn't easy for you." "Nothing about the past few months has been easy," Rachel replied evenly. "But we all make choices, don't we?" Something in her tone made Andrew pause. "What does that mean?" Rachel set down her tools and met his gaze directly. "It means that every decision has consequences, Andrew. Every choice leads somewhere. I've accepted the consequences of my choices. Have you?" Andrew shifted uncomfortably. "If this is about us..." "It's not about us," Rachel interrupted. "There is no us anymore, remember? You made sure of that." "Rachel, I never wanted to hurt you. The pregnancy was unexpected. I had to do the right thing." Rachel studied his face, the man she had loved for so many years, now a stranger to her. Did he really believe his own justifications, or was he just hiding from the truth of his betrayal? "The right thing," she repeated softly. "We'll see." Andrew gave her an odd look but didn't pursue the conversation further. As he gathered his things to leave, he paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I am sorry for how everything happened. I never meant for any of this." Rachel smiled thinly. "I know you didn't. That's the problem, isn't it? You never mean for anything to happen. Things just happen to you, and you react. You don't choose, Andrew. You just fall." He stared at her for a long moment, then left without another word. That night, Rachel finalized the last details of her plan. The cake had been ordered, a beautiful blue confection from an upscale bakery. The envelope was prepared with its devastating contents. Everything was in place for Vanessa's moment of truth. As Rachel lay in bed, she realized she felt no joy at the thought of what was to come, no vindictive pleasure, no anticipation of sweet revenge. Instead, she felt a deep, settled certainty that justice was finally at hand, not just for her, but for every person Vanessa had manipulated and deceived. In 3 days, the truth would be served, on a silver platter, with a side of cake. The Westbrook Hotel ballroom was transformed for Vanessa's baby shower. Blue and silver decorations hung from the ceiling, matching the "It's a Boy" theme that dominated the space. A table piled high with elegantly wrapped gifts stood near the entrance. In the center of the room, a catering staff bustled around a buffet of finger foods and mocktails. Rachel arrived exactly 15 minutes after the stated start time, not so late as to draw attention, but late enough that most guests had already arrived. She wore a simple but elegant navy dress, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. The bakery box containing the cake was in her arms. A small note attached, "Special delivery for the mom-to-be." As she entered, conversations momentarily paused. She felt the weight of curious stares, Andrew's family members and colleagues who knew she was the ex-wife, Vanessa's friends who had heard stories about the infertile ex who couldn't let go. Andrew spotted her first, his expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. He crossed the room quickly. "Rachel, you came, and you brought a cake?" Rachel smiled politely. "I ordered it specially, a little contribution to the celebration." Before Andrew could respond, Vanessa appeared at his side, resplendent in a pale blue maternity gown that showcased her growing belly. Her eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of Rachel. "How Thoughtful of you to bring something, Vanessa said, her tone suggesting the opposite. We already have shower cake, of course, but I'm sure we can find space for yours. Oh, this isn't just any cake, Rachel replied pleasantly. It's a gender reveal cake, very special. I thought it could be the centerpiece when you cut the cake later. Vanessa's eyes darted to the box, suspicion clear in her expression. We already know it's a boy. Consider it a confirmation. Rachel's smile didn't waver. Besides, everyone loves a little drama at these events, don't they? Andrew, oblivious to the tension between the women, nodded enthusiastically. That's a great idea. Mom was disappointed we didn't do a proper gender reveal. This will make her happy. Vanessa's mouth tightened. But with Andrew and now several curious guests looking on, she had little choice. Fine. How creative of you, Rachel. A catering staff member approached, and Rachel handed over the cake box with specific instructions for its presentation. As the staff member walked away, Vanessa leaned in close to Rachel. I know what you're doing, she hissed quietly. Trying to steal my spotlight, it won't work. Everyone here pities you, you know. The barren ex-wife who can't let go. Rachel met her gaze calmly. Enjoy your shower, Vanessa. I'm sure it will be memorable. For the next hour, Rachel circulated politely among the guests. She accepted condolences and well wishes with grace, deflecting personal questions with practiced ease. All the while, she kept one eye on Vanessa, who held court in the center of the room, accepting gifts and adoration with queenly satisfaction. Andrew's mother, Patricia, cornered Rachel by the drink table. I wasn't sure you'd come, the older woman said bluntly. It must be difficult. Rachel sipped her sparkling water. Some things are worth the discomfort. Patricia studied her thoughtfully. You know, I never liked how all this happened. Andrew was wrong to cheat, regardless of the circumstances. But the baby, well, a child changes everything, doesn't it? It certainly does, Rachel agreed. A baby reveals the truth in people. Patricia frowned slightly at the cryptic response but was called away before she could inquire further. Across the room, Vanessa was opening gifts, exclaiming with practiced enthusiasm over tiny blue outfits and expensive baby gadgets. Andrew sat beside her, looking somewhat overwhelmed by the mountain of presents. And this, Vanessa announced, holding up a silver baby rattle, is from Anne's grandmother. It's been in the family for generations. Rachel felt a twinge of pain. That rattle had been promised to their Bobbia family heirloom that Andrew's grandmother had specifically saved for Rachel's firstborn. Now Vanessa was claiming it as if it had always been meant for her. A waiter appeared at Rachel's elbow. The cake will be presented in 15 minutes, he informed her quietly. Is there anything else you need prepared? Rachel shook her head. Everything is exactly as it should be. As the gift opening drew to a close, Vanessa was the picture of maternal bliss, one hand resting on her belly as she thanked everyone for their generosity. Her gaze caught Rachel's across the room, a smug smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Before we move on to cake, Vanessa announced, I'd like to say something. The room quieted as all attention turned to her. Andrew and I are so grateful to everyone for celebrating our little miracle with us today. This baby is a gift proof that true love always finds a way. She paused, her eyes finding Rachel again. Some journeys to motherhood are meant to be, and some aren't. I'm just thankful that fate brought Andrew and me together at exactly the right time to create this perfect little life. Rachel felt her hands curl into fists at her sides as Vanessa's friends murmured in agreement. The sheer audacity of the woman, to stand there and spin her web of lies, to use Rachel's miscarriage as a point of comparison to elevate her own pregnancy. And now, Vanessa continued, rising gracefully, I believe it's time for cake. Rachel has thoughtfully provided a gender reveal cake, even though we all know it's a boy. She laughed lightly, inviting the room to join her amusement at Rachel's supposedly desperate attempt to participate. The catering staff wheeled out the cake on a silver cart. It was beautifully tiers of pale blue fondant, decorated with silver stars and tiny footprints. On top, a simple question was written in elegant script. Baby boy? How cute, Vanessa said, her tone making it clear she found it anything but. Andrew, will you join me for the cutting? As Andrew moved to her side, Rachel stepped forward. Actually, Vanessa, there's a special way this cake works. Inside is a little surprise that answers an important question. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. We already know it's a boy. Oh, the surprise isn't about gender, Rachel said, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent room. It's about paternity. The room went completely still. Andrew froze beside Vanessa, whose face had suddenly drained of color. What are you talking about? Andrew asked, looking between Rachel and Vanessa in confusion. Why don't we cut the cake and find out? Rachel suggested quietly. After all, everyone loves a little drama at these events. Isn't that right, Vanessa? Vanessa's eyes darted wildly around the room. clearly weighing her options. With everyone watching, refusing to cut the cake would only confirm that something was wrong. "This is ridiculous," she finally said, forcing a laugh. "Rachel is clearly trying to cause a scene because she's jealous. Let's just cut the cake and move on with our celebration." The catering staff provided a silver cake knife. With a trembling hand, Vanessa made the first cut into the top tier. The knife hit something solid. "What?" she began, but stopped as she saw what was inside. From within the cake, she pulled out a sealed envelope, slightly stained with blue frosting. On the front, bold, elegant handwriting read, "Should we invite the real father?" The ballroom was suspended in a moment of perfect silence. Vanessa stood frozen, the envelope dangling from her fingers, blue frosting smeared across the pristine white paper. Her face had gone from shock to something else-y calculating look, her mind clearly racing for an escape route. Andrew stared at the envelope, confusion giving way to suspicion. "What is this, Vanessa? What does it mean?" Vanessa recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. "It's obviously some sick joke. Rachel is trying to ruin our special day because she's jealous." She turned to face the room, voice rising with practiced indignation. "Can you believe this? The length some women will go to when they can't accept reality?" But her performance wasn't quite landing. The guests shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between Vanessa's forced smile and the envelope she still held. "Open it," Rachel said quietly. "If it's just a joke, you have nothing to worry about." Vanessa's smile tightened. "I don't need to open it. This is pathetic, Rachel, even for you." Before she could say more, Andrew reached out and took the envelope from her hand. "I'll open it." "Andrew, don't," Vanessa began, but it was too late. Andrew tore open the envelope and pulled out its contents, several papers stapled together. As he scanned the first page, his expression darkened. He flipped to the second page, then the third, his hands beginning to shake. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Vanessa tried to grab the papers, but Andrew held them out of reach. "It's nothing. Just fake documents Rachel probably created too. It's a paternity test." Andrew cut her off, his voice rising as he turned to face the room. "And a report from a private investigator, and records from a fertility clinic." He turned back to Vanessa, fury building in his expression. "The baby isn't mine. It's not my baby. You've been seeing someone else this whole time. Someone named James Cortez." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Vanessa's mother stepped forward, confusion etched on her face. "Vanessa, what is he talking about?" Vanessa's composure was cracking. "It's lies, all lies. Rachel is trying to destroy us because she couldn't give Andrew a baby." But Andrew was still reading, his face growing darker with each page. 4EF treatments for over a year, with James as the donor. He looked up, eyes blazing. "You were never pregnant with my child. You manipulated me from the beginning." The truth was out now, spreading through the room in hushed whispers. Vanessa's carefully constructed facade was crumbling before everyone's eyes. "I can explain," Vanessa said desperately, reaching for Andrew's arm. "It's complicated, but I do love you." Andrew jerked away from her touch. "Love me? You've been sleeping with another man the entire time. You made me believe I was going to be a father. You made me leave my wife." He stopped suddenly, turning to look at Rachel with dawning comprehension. "You knew. How long have you known?" "Long enough," Rachel replied evenly. "I noticed inconsistencies in her story, behavior that didn't make sense. I hired a private investigator who uncovered the truth. Vanessa has been in a relationship with James Cortez for over a year. They've been trying to have a baby through IVF. She became pregnant with his child, then seduced you as a backup plan, in case James wouldn't commit after the baby was born." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Vanessa's friends huddled together, whispering and staring. Patricia, Andrew's mother, pushed through the crowd to examine the papers her son still clutched. "Is this true?" she demanded, looking directly at Vanessa. "Have you been lying to my son? To this entire family?" Vanessa's face had gone from pale to bright red, tears of frustration welling in her eyes. "You don't understand. I knew James would back off. I needed security. I needed options." Her inadvertent admission silenced the room once more. Andrew stared at her in disbelief. "Options?" he repeated incredulously. "I was just an option? A backup plan?" "No, not like that." Vanessa backpedaled frantically. "I do care about you, Andrew. The baby needs a father, a good father. I knew you would be." "Stop," Andrew cut her off, his voice hollow. "Just stop lying. You've done enough of that." He turned away from her, the papers still clutched in his hand, and addressed the stunned guests. "I think this party is over. Thank you all for coming, but under the circumstances." People began to gather their things, the room buzzing with shock and scandal. Vanessa stood alone by the half-cut cake, tears now streaming down her face, as her perfect plan disintegrated around her. "You," she hissed, eyes locking on Rachel. You planned this. You humiliated me on purpose. Rachel met her gaze steadily. You mocked my miscarriage. You taunted me about my inability to have children. You moved into my home and tortured me daily while sleeping with another man. You manipulated my husband and used a baby and innocent child as a pawn in your game. She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. You did this to yourself, Vanessa? I just made sure everyone saw the truth. Vanessa's mother approached, her face a mask of disappointment and confusion. Vanessa, we're going home. Now, we need to talk about what's happened. As Vanessa was led away by her mother, sobbing and casting venomous glances back at Rachel, Andrew approached. He looked shell-shocked, the papers now folded and tucked into his jacket pocket. Rachel, he began, but seemed unable to find the words. Don't, Rachel said softly. There's nothing to say. I left you, he persisted, his voice breaking. I left you when you needed me most because of her lies. Rachel nodded. Yes, you did. I'm so sorry, Andrew whispered, reaching for her hand. Can we talk? Maybe not now, but soon. I need to make this right. Rachel gently withdrew her hand from his reach. There's no making this right, Andrew. You made your choice. When I told you I was suspicious of Vanessa, you dismissed me. When I was grieving our baby, you were sleeping with her. When she moved into our home and tormented me, you looked the other way. Andrew flinched at each statement, the truth of her words evident in his expression. But I didn't know the baby wasn't mine, he protested weakly. I was trying to do the honorable thing. The honorable thing would have been honoring your marriage vows, Rachel replied without anger, just a deep weariness. The honorable thing would have been standing by me through our loss instead of seeking comfort in another woman's arms. The honorable thing would have been trusting your wife's instincts instead of a woman who had every reason to lie. She gathered her purse, preparing to leave. I didn't do this for you, Andrew. I did it for me, to close this chapter and move forward with my life. Andrew's face crumpled. What about us? Now that we know the truth, there is no us anymore, Rachel said firmly. That ended when you chose to leave. Today doesn't change that. It just confirms I'm better off without you. As Rachel made her way toward the exit, she passed Patricia, who reached out to stop her. Rachel, the older woman said, her eyes filled with regret. I should have questioned things more. We all should have. Rachel smiled sadly. We believe what we want to believe, Patricia. I've learned that the hard way. Will you be all right? Patricia asked, genuine concern in her voice. Rachel nodded, feeling a strange lightness in her chest. Yes, for the first time in a long time, I think I will be. As she walked out of the ballroom, Rachel heard the continued commotion behind her. Vanessa's friends in shocked discussion, Andrew's family consoling him, the catering staff awkwardly beginning to clean up the ruined celebration. She didn't look back. Her part in this story was done. Outside, the late afternoon sun was warm on her face. Rachel took a deep breath, feeling as though she could finally fill her lungs completely after months of suffocation. Justice had been served not with violence or shouting, but with the simple, devastating power of truth. As she walked to her car, Rachel realized she felt no triumph, no vindictive pleasure in Vanessa's downfall. Instead, there was a quiet satisfaction, the knowledge that lies had been exposed, that light had been shown on darkness, and most importantly, there was freedom. Freedom from the past, from the pain, from the web of deception that had entangled her life. The future stretched before her, uncertain but entirely her own. 6 months later, Rachel stood in the doorway of her new apartment, surveying the living room with satisfaction. The morning sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating the space she had carefully curated over the past months. White walls, warm wooden furniture, and touches of teal and gold created a sanctuary that was entirely her own. So much had changed since the day of Vanessa's baby shower. The spectacular implosion of Vanessa's lies had set off a chain reaction that had touched every aspect of Rachel's life, mostly for the better. The divorce had been finalized quickly after the revelation. Andrew, consumed by guilt and shame, had agreed to all of Rachel's terms without argument. She had received the financial settlement she needed to start over, including funds to expand her jewelry business. Rachel moved through her apartment, straightening a picture frame here, adjusting a vase there. Her latest jewelry collection was spread across her work table by the window pieces, inspired by resilience and rebirth, crafted from materials that had been broken and reformed. The collection had received attention from several upscale boutiques, and a major department store had recently expressed interest in carrying her line. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. Still on for lunch today? Can't wait to see the new place. Rachel smiled as she replied in the affirmative. Her relationship with her sister had deepened in the aftermath of everything. In fact, many of her relationships had strengthened as she learned to open up about her experiences. As she prepared for her day, Rachel's thoughts drifted to what had become of the others in this drama. Andrew had spiraled after the baby shower revelation. His professional reputation had suffered not from the fact that he'd been deceived, but from the poor judgment he'd shown throughout the situation. Last Rachel heard, he had taken a position at a smaller firm in another city, a significant step down from his previous role. He had reached out to Rachel several times in the months following the divorce, alternating between apologies and pleas for reconciliation. Eventually, she had blocked his number, finding that each contact reopened wounds that were finally beginning to heal. And Vanessa. Rachel had learned through mutual acquaintances that Vanessa's house of cards had completely collapsed. James, the real father of her baby, had refused to commit after the public scandal. He'd agreed to financial support for the child but wanted nothing to do with herself. Her carefully cultivated social circle had disintegrated as friends and colleagues distanced themselves from her toxic lies. The Bobbia boy had been born 3 months ago. Vanessa was now a single mother, struggling with the realities of parenthood without the support system she had tried to manipulate into place. Her Instagram, once filled with carefully staged photos of her perfect life, had gone quiet. Rachel felt no joy in Vanessa's difficulties, only a distant sadness for the innocent child caught in the aftermath of his mother's deceptions. For a time, Rachel had worried that her actions at the baby shower might have harmed the baby, somehow adding stress to Vanessa's pregnancy. But she had come to realize that exposing the truth had been necessary, and that responsibility for any consequences lay with Vanessa, not with her. "You're early," Rachel said, opening the door to find her sister Claire standing there with coffee and pastry bags. "I couldn't wait," Claire grinned, stepping inside and looking around appreciatively. "Wow, this place is gorgeous. You've really made it your own." Rachel accepted the coffee gratefully. "It's coming together. Still feels a bit strange sometimes starting over at 34. "Starting over is better than staying stuck," Claire replied, setting the pastries on the kitchen counter. "And look at you now, thriving business. Beautiful new home. Actually sleeping through the night." Rachel smiled, remembering the insomnia that had plagued her for months during the worst of her marriage's dissolution. "I still have bad days, but they're fewer and farther between." "That's healing for you," Claire said, hopping onto one of the bar stools. "So any updates on the boutique deal? Are they taking the whole collection?" As they chatted about Rachel's business, the conversation eventually turned to more personal matters. "Have you thought any more about the support group I mentioned?" Claire asked. "The one for women who've experienced pregnancy loss." Rachel hesitated. Her miscarriage still felt like a wound that hadn't fully healed, less raw than before, but tender nonetheless. "I'm sure I'm ready to talk about it in a group setting." "No pressure," Claire assured her. "But from what my friend says, there's something powerful about being with others who truly understand. Whenever you're ready." Rachel nodded, appreciating her sister's gentleness. "Maybe soon. I think I'm getting to a place where I can talk about it without falling apart." "That's progress," Claire smiled. "Speaking of progress, have you heard the latest about your ex and his former mistress?" Rachel frowned. "I try not to keep tabs on them." I know, but this is actually kind of relevant to your healing process," Claire insisted. "Andrew tried to contact Vanessa after the baby was born, apparently out of some misguided sense of responsibility. She tried to use that to manipulate him back into a relationship." "That sounds like Vanessa," Rachel said dryly. "The thing is," Claire continued, "it didn't work. According to Kim from your old neighborhood, Andrew finally grew a spine and told Vanessa he wanted nothing to do with her. Said the whole experience made him realize how toxic he'd become and that he needed to work on himself before he could be in a relationship with anyone." Rachel absorbed this information with a strange sense of detachment. Time and distance had dulled the sharp edges of her anger toward Andrew. What remained was a sad acknowledgement of opportunities lost and trust broken beyond repair. "Good for him, I guess," she said finally. "Self-awareness is a start." Claire studied her sister's face. "You really have moved on, haven't you?" Rachel looked around her new home, the space she had created for herself, filled with her own choices and free from painful memories. "I had to. Staying angry at them was like drinking poison and hoping they would die. It was only hurting me." "So wise," Claire teased gently. "Next, you'll be telling me you've forgiven them." Rachel considered this. Forgiveness implies they've asked for it. Andrew has, in his way, but that's more about alleviating his guilt than anything else. Vanessa certainly hasn't. She paused, gathering her thoughts. "What I've done is release them. They don't get to occupy space in my mind or heart anymore." "That's not forgiveness, it's self-preservation." Claire raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To self-preservation, then, and to new beginnings." "New beginnings," Rachel echoed, clinking her cup against her sister's. After Claire left, Rachel returned to her workbench, picking up a pendant she'd been designing. It was a phoenix, rising from stylized flames, beautiful because of its transformation, not in spite of it. Like her, the pendant had gone through fire and emerged stronger. The thought brought a smile to her face as she bent over her work, adding the final touches to her creation. 2 weeks later, Rachel stood nervously in a church basement, a paper cup of lukewarm coffee in her hand. Around her, women of various ages chatted in small groups or sat quietly in the circle of chairs arranged in the center of the room. The pregnancy loss support group had been meeting monthly for years, but this was Rachel's first time attending. Claire had offered to come with her, but Rachel felt this was something she needed to do. First time? Rachel turned to find a woman about her age smiling gently at her. Her name tag read Jessica, group facilitator. "Is it that obvious?" Rachel asked with a small laugh. Jessica nodded. "The white knuckle grip on the coffee cup gives it away. Don't worry, there's no pressure to share today. You can just listen if you prefer." "Thank you," Rachel said gratefully. "I'm not sure what I'm ready for, to be honest." "That's completely normal," Jessica assured her. "Everyone's journey through grief, and we honor all paths here." As the session began, Rachel listened as women shared their stories: miscarriages, stillbirths, infant losses. Some had occurred recently, the grief still raw and overwhelming. Others had happened years ago, the pain softened by time but never entirely gone. When it came to Rachel's turn, she surprised herself by speaking. "My name is Rachel. I lost my baby at 14 weeks, about a year ago." Her voice trembled slightly, but she continued. "The circumstances were complicated. My husband was having an affair, and the stress contributed to the miscarriage." The women nodded in understanding, free from judgment. "The hardest part," Rachel admitted, "was that his affair partner got pregnant soon after. She used to taunt me about it, saying some women were meant to be mothers and some weren't." Tears pricked at her eyes. For a long time, I believed her. An older woman across the circle leaned forward. "And now?" Rachel took a deep breath. "Now I know that's not true. Motherhood isn't about biological capability. It's about love, care, nurturing. I may not have carried my baby to term, but I was a mother for those 14 weeks. I loved completely. That counts for something." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the circle. A woman next to Rachel gently squeezed her hand. "The affair partner's pregnancy. Did she have the baby?" someone asked tentatively. Rachel nodded. "Yes, though it turns out it wasn't my ex-husband's child." She'd been lying to everyone. She didn't elaborate further, not wanting to center Vanessa's drama in this sacred space. "And how are you doing now?" Jessica asked. Rachel considered the question carefully. "I'm healing. Some days are harder than others. I still think about the baby, who they might have been, what they might have looked like. I don't think that ever goes away completely." "It doesn't," confirmed a woman who had introduced herself as having lost a baby 20 years ago. "But it changes. The grief becomes part of you rather than consuming you." After the session, several women approached Rachel, sharing their own experiences or simply offering support. One woman pressed a small stone into Rachel's palm. "It's a remembrance stone," she explained. "I keep one for each of my losses. Sometimes it helps to have something tangible to hold." Rachel closed her fingers around the smooth stone, warmth spreading through her chest. Here, among these women who understood in a way no one else could, she felt a different kind of healing beginning, one based not on forgetting or moving on, but on honoring her experience and integrating it into her life story. As she drove home that evening, Rachel felt lighter somehow. The grief was still there, but it had shifted, become more manageable. She wasn't alone in her experience. She never had been. At a stoplight, Rachel's phone buzzed with an email notification. Opening it at home, she discovered it was from the department store buyer. They wanted to feature her Phoenix pendant as the centerpiece of their spring collection. Rachel smiled, tracing her finger over the stone in her pocket. Endings and beginnings, loss and creation, all part of the same continuous cycle. For the first time in a long time, she felt genuinely hopeful about what lay ahead. The journey hadn't been what she expected. The path had twisted through dark valleys and seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But standing here now, in a life wholly her own, Rachel knew she wouldn't trade her hard-won wisdom for an easier road. She was stronger now, wiser, more compassionate toward herself and others. And most importantly, she was free. In a small apartment across town, Vanessa paced the floor with a screaming infant in her arms. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, a far cry from the polished appearance she had once maintained. "Please, Ethan, please stop crying," she begged, bouncing the baby gently. "Mommy's trying, I promise." The apartment was cluttered with baby items, some expensive gifts from the ill-fated shower that she'd managed to keep, others second-hand necessities she'd been forced to purchase when her financial situation deteriorated. On the counter lay a stack of bills, rent past due, medical expenses mounting, credit cards approaching their limits. Beside them sat her phone, open to a text conversation with James, the baby's father. The support check is the same as last month. Don't ask for more. Ethan needs formula and diapers. The amount isn't enough. Not my problem. We agreed on the amount. Can you at least come see him? He's your son. I'm sending money. That's all I agreed to. Don't contact me again. Vanessa's carefully constructed life had crumbled around her. The women who had once been her friends had disappeared, unwilling to associate with someone who had lied so extensively. Andrew had cut all contact after a failed attempt at reconciliation, during which Vanessa had tried to convince him to help raise Ethan. For the sake of the baby she had once used to manipulate him. Her career was in shambles. The PR firm where she'd worked had asked for her resignation after the scandal became public knowledge. Her reputation in professional circles was tarnished, making new opportunities scarce. Most painfully, her parents had distanced themselves, deeply disappointed by her deceptions. They sent money occasionally for Ethan but maintained an emotional distance that Vanessa found almost unbearable. As Ethan finally quieted in her arms, Vanessa sank onto the couch, tears sliding down her cheeks. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had mocked Rachel's inability to have children, only to find herself struggling so profoundly with the realities of motherhood. She thought back to her cruel words. Some women are just meant to be mothers, and some aren't. What a terrible thing to have said. What an awful person she had been. Looking down at Ethan's now peaceful face, Vanessa felt a familiar mixture of love and terror. She loved her son fiercely, unconditionally, but the isolation of single motherhood without adequate support was crushing her. "We'll be okay," she whispered to him, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Somehow, we'll be okay. As darkness fell outside her window, Vanessa sat alone with her sleeping child, facing the consequences of choices made from selfishness and deception. No manipulations could fix this situation. No lies could restore what she had lost. For the first time in her life, Vanessa was forced to confront her true self and begin the long, difficult work of becoming someone her son could eventually be proud of. Remember, your story isn't defined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to respond. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away and